How many of your students struggle with writing? The answer is probably quite a few. Students need to be able to write effectively for a variety of purposes. In this video, we're going to talk about some ways that you can build in quick write opportunities where students are jotting down their thoughts, writing things down in a short time frame, as well as some extended writing opportunities where students are really focusing on the art and process and science of writing. How do they communicate their thoughts effectively? With a quick write, the purpose is not to focus on the mechanics of writing. Rather, the focus is on communication. Get down your thoughts. Make your thinking visible through writing. Students will need resources to write. Now, you can have a writing center in your classroom where you have a variety of materials that students can utilize in the writing process. Having things like sticky notes, pens, pencils, crayons, even the gel pens that students love so much, different kinds of paper, lined paper, unlined paper, are all helpful and help to remove barriers that students have when it comes to writing. Sometimes they're intimidated by a lined piece of paper, 8.5 by 11. Give them a half a sheet. If they don't know how to write the word, they can start with the first letter of that word or the sound. They can begin with invented spelling. They can then add a word or a short phrase, then longer sentences. Sometimes students want to begin by making a sketch because writing is intimidating for them. Great, encourage that. From there, students can add to their sketch. They can add a label. Along with sketching, we can have students write in their home or native or primary language as well. Now, this isn't to say that students will only sketch all the time or will only write in their home or native or primary language all the time. We can mix it up. Lots of opportunities for students to write, lots of opportunities for students to express themselves. Now, when I ask students to engage in quick writes, I ask them to focus on content. Here, I'm not really interested in the mechanics, the syntax, the spelling. Well, I'm always interested in those things, but I'm not asking students to focus on them in their writing. Rather, I'm asking students to communicate their thinking, to tell me what's going on in their head. There are a couple of different types of quick writes that we can use. After learning, we can ask students what was most interesting. What were 3 to 5 of the key points that we just discussed? We often include a writing opportunity after engaging in a graphic organizer input chart, in a pictorial input chart or a comparative input chart, or perhaps a narrative input chart. We can also have students engage in a learning log after doing a read aloud, perhaps reading the big book or reading an article together. These are all opportunities to have students focus on a correct answer as well, where you're asking them to reflect on what they just learned. The learning log can be used before instruction as well. So before we dig into a pictorial input chart, for example, and present information to students, you can ask them what they already know about this topic, personal experiences that they've had around this topic, things that they've read about, etc. In this way, we're activating students' prior knowledge. We're helping them to dig into what they already know and make that visible. We can also ask them to write some questions. In some states, the first reading standard is ask and answer questions about a particular topic. This gives students the opportunity to build their own questions. We can front-load them with some scaffolding here as well by giving them the question words, providing some question stems, etc. If you're using a quick write as a way to engage in students' background knowledge or activate their prior knowledge, consider that some students may not have a lot of background knowledge about a particular topic that they're learning about. There's a few ways to address this. One, you might have already engaged your students in a background building activity where indeed they did some writing through the observation charts. As students used those visuals, you are actively building background knowledge around the topic. You can certainly refer back to those. You might even have students go back to the observation charts momentarily, look at one of them, and look at some of the questions that were asked in the observation charts. You might ask them to consider some of the comments that were made there. Similarly, you can engage students in a 10-2 before engaging in a writing activity. The reality of it is, if a student can't say it, they can't write it. So giving students the opportunity to talk together, to collaborate, will help them to brainstorm, to consider some information, to have the opportunity to practice a bit before committing it to writing. This is also a very effective technique. Have a conversation first, because sometimes I may not be able to think of something right away. But as I'm talking with a partner, I get more ideas, more things come to mind, and then I'm ready to write something down. This provides a purpose for the conversation they've had with their peers. They're writing about what they know, and they're adding information that they've learned collaboratively with each other. As teachers, we ask a lot of questions throughout the day. Research indicates that we ask hundreds of questions of our students every day. Now consider how you ask questions in the classroom. Sometimes when you ask a question, you might say something like, "Who can tell me?" or "Who would like to share?" And we often have 1 or 2 or 3 students who always want to share. You can probably picture them in your mind right now. Me, I want to share, right? We've all had those students. And then you might have a whole bunch of other students who don't immediately raise their hand, who aren't immediately excited to share their response. By providing students the opportunity to write, everyone is engaged. So take some of those great questions that you ask throughout the day and have students write about them. They only need to write for a few minutes. A quick write should last anywhere from about 2 to 8 minutes, no longer than that. Now, there's a variety of ways that we can correct quick writes. You do not have to collect them all. We can do what's called an over-the-shoulder assessment, where we walk around and see our students writing about the topic that we've asked them to write about. That's good enough. We don't have to collect every piece of writing that students create. So, by reviewing those, even just a scan, we can see the skills that students have and skills that they don't yet have. Consider quick writes as a first draft. Now, we don't have to go back and create additional drafts of every quick write, certainly not. It's really an opportunity for students to get down their thoughts, make their thinking visual, and also for everyone to be engaged in answering a particular question. After engaging in the quick write, students can have the opportunity to share their writing with each other. They can share how they wrote. Did they decide to do some sketching? Did they decide to write in a language other than English? Did they do some sketching and some writing or some labeling? These opportunities to write can be celebrated. They can also share their thinking. Why did they decide to present their writing this way? How did they organize their writing and why so? This gets students to be metacognitive about the writing process. What did I put down on paper and why did I decide to do it that way? Is there a different way that I might have done it? And they can learn that from their peer. So having a quick opportunity to share their writing, to share it with a peer, perhaps have a few students share it with the class, is a great opportunity to celebrate the writing process, celebrate the ideas that students have had, and to continue to build skills in writing. Just like with quick writes, where we start with 2, 3, 4 minutes of writing, extended writing opportunities can start smaller. However, when we're asking students to engage in this type of writing, we might begin to ask them to focus a little more carefully on how they're structuring their writing, how they're going to organize their writing, how they're going to build in additional language to make it clearer, choose precise words, etc. Here, we're asking students to compose rather than just quick write, get down your thoughts. In this way, we're focusing on making our thinking visual, but also on the science of writing. How do we improve students' writing skills? With these extended writing opportunities, if you need to, start small, and then push a little bit and increase the amount of time that students should engage in and focus on writing. If they can only handle 6 or 7 minutes of writing, try for 8, then try for 10. Continue to push so that students can take the opportunity to really think and compose their writing. Sometimes it takes a minute to get into the flow of writing, but once we're going, we don't want to stop. So we don't only want to provide them short opportunities, but we also want to build their stamina so that when they have an extended period to write, they can actually engage in the writing process. When we move into extended writing opportunities, you can model for students, how do I plan my writing? Am I going to use a graphic organizer? Am I going to do some sketching? You can model for students the composition process of getting your ideas down, similar to what you did in a quick write. You can show students the revision process and how you're going to focus on choosing precise words, going back to your writing, rereading, looking for the parts that were effective, that you liked, and parts that you think, this didn't quite make sense. You might show them how you reorder ideas. Then you might model for them how you're going to edit your writing. What kinds of things you're looking for, correcting spelling errors, for example, making sure the capitalization is correct, the mechanics are all correct. You're showing them how we engage in writing when we're writing a composition and when we're doing a quick write. Modeling is extremely important in writing. Students will need explicit instruction as well in how to write and in how to make their writing even better. In all cases, students should be able to utilize the print-rich environment that you've created in your classroom. When you have words and information surrounding students, when your walls are dripping with language, it provides them the resources that they need to pull from in order to express themselves more effectively. In this way, you can encourage them to utilize the key vocabulary and concepts that they see up around them and integrate those into their writing. Think back to our initial question. Do you have students who struggle with writing? My bet is that you do. We can provide a variety of ways to help students to build their writing skills. By integrating in quick writes throughout the day and throughout the week, as well as providing some of those extended opportunities for students to write, they can begin to build more success, where writing is fun and exciting and creative. We all have an innate desire to express ourselves, to share our thoughts, to be validated for what we think, for what we believe, for who we are as people. Writing provides that opportunity and can easily be integrated into your classroom throughout the day.